Hello, dear guys. Welcome to SIFFA Live Talks. I'm Luba Balagova. I am going to introduce our wonderful guests in Russian language, and then we will do the questions and answers in English. Дорогие друзья, я с удовольствием хочу представить вам виновников сегодняшней встречи. Стив Келли, кинорежиссер, который любит рассказывать ошеломляющие и убедительные человеческие истории. Хочу быть краткой в представлениях, но не удержусь, не сказав, насколько Стив любим британской прессой, что, на мой взгляд, вполне справедливо. Стив более 30 лет работающий в кино на телевидении над производством драмы, документальных фильмов, рекламы Sky, BBC, ITV, C4, Channel 5, Discovery, и снявший 3 полнометражных фильма, был номинирован на множество профессиональных наград. Его дебютный фильм «Городские крысы» в 2009 году стал настоящим хитом коммерческого проката. Критики высоко оценили его работы. «Смешно смеяться смешно», Daily Telegraph, «Неотразимый», Daily Mail, потрясающий Radio Times, захватывающий Mail on Sunday, отлично, Daily Star, выполнено на все 100, Guardian, и мощный, и принципиальный The Sunday Telegraph. Это можно продолжать и продолжать, но я на этом пока остановлюсь. Анна Даншина – это русская актриса, очаровательная, потрясающе красивая и талантливейшая. Мы ее пригласили, потому что она единственная русская актриса в этом фильме, хотя у нее не очень большая роль. Но, тем не менее, она заслужила 8 международных наград как лучшая актриса. Она же модель, она же ведущая, и я ее хочу поблагодарить, и мы ее по-особенному любим, потому что в 2019 году она делала на SIFFA 2019 и открытие, и закрытие. Добро пожаловать, Анночка. И, наконец, с радостью представляю лучшего в мире продюсера T.J. Герберта, генерального директора и основателя Itchy Fish Film Company. Рыбка чешется, я сейчас спрошу, почему такое смешное название у этой компании. А также он продюсер фильма «Парни из Бромли», сыгравшего и роль одного из героев Рой Оливер в фильме. Он характеризует себя словами главного героя фильма Дэйва Робертса. Парень, который никогда не знал, как сдаться. The guy who never knew how to give up. Вот этих замечательных людей, и к ним сегодня добавился и писатель, и замечательный скриптрайтер, сценарист, я должна сказать, Уоррен. И я очень благодарна за то, что он к нам присоединился, потому что мы с ним буквально сегодня утром обменивались месседжами на Твиттере. Он известен за свои произведения «Кейдж», 2016 год, «Dodgeberry and Bob», «Private Investigators», 2008 год, «And the Cutting Room», 2015 год. И он, конечно, является тем исключительно потрясающим автором и сценаристом, который написал сценарий и вообще роман к этому произведению. Пожалуйста, его тоже приветствуйте. Уоррен Дудли. Я надеюсь, что я фамилию правильно произнесла. Итак, я обращу свой первый вопрос, дорогие друзья, на английском языке нашим дорогим гостям. So my first question to all of you. I hope I pronounced your surname correctly, sir. I have been reading the book, The COVID-19 Catastrophe by Richard Horton. It made me understand that we have truly entered a new era, but none of us fully understands that yet, the era of coronavirus. But being in lockdown, I feel that we all have changed a little. at least we have discovered a few new things about ourselves. Am I right or wrong? What have you discovered about yourselves? This question to my guests, Steve, TJ, Warren, Anachka. I will start first.
Hello.
Shall I go first?
Go for it,
Yeah.
Steve.
Well, I suppose just very quickly, my hands are softer than ever.
Oh, that's nice. Warren actually should be saying that. He's the writer. Your hands cannot be softer.
You know, TJ, my hands actually became harder from the gardening. So I have to say I've discovered some new hobbies, like metal detecting. I have a sore back and harder hands. So it's the opposite.
So, TJ.
You're in contact with the brand I use, okay? I've got an extra brand I use. My hands are like babies.
So at this moment in time, are you sort of thinking, I'm so glad we finished the Bromley Boys and it is all done? Or maybe you're thinking, I wish I was still working on the film instead of being at this lockdown.
Oh, that was really weird.
Shall I go?
So at this moment, are you thinking, I wish, no, I'm glad so we finished the Bromley Boys. You know, it's done now. Or I wish I was still doing it. I wish I was still in the process of doing it. Or for you, Warren, I wish I was still writing it.
Well, as a writer, obviously being stuck at home and not able to go out is a good thing. So I've been writing, yeah, my first book, keeping myself busy. So yeah, it's been an okay time, but it's good, like you say, the Bromley Boys. It would have been such a shame to have stopped filming because of this. So it's been, it's a relief that it's finished. But yeah, on a personal level, as a writer, I spend my whole life on my own anyway. So it's been nice for me. This is good.
Well, Hemingway was writing his pieces to his novel at the pub, in the bars. You know that. You're different. You like to write at home.
I do. Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah, any excuse not to speak to people is good for me.
A true communicator.
Absolutely. Hello, Steve.
Hello.
How you doing, mate?
Yeah, great, thanks. Yeah, I've learned a couple of things. I've learned I'm not a teacher. I'm probably not as good as a parent as I thought I was. We have 2 children, and I'm also not in control. I know there's always been an illusion. You always have a self-illusion that you're in control if you're a director, but you're always wrong. You're never in control. So, but it's actually been really, really nice. We've kind of, lockdown is, again, as a director, you only spend time with other people when you're filming, because most of the time before that, you're just prepping. So much kind of goes on inside your head. So yeah, actually, we've really rather enjoyed it, but the enjoyment only lasts as long as the weather's half decent, and it hasn't been just in the last week or so, last couple of weeks. It's been rubbish, but when the weather's good, it's actually not a bad thing at all.
Well, which part of England you're staying?
In Sevenoaks, so we're southeast of London. So I can get into the centre of London in 25 minutes.
I see. All right. Okay. What about you, TJ? You were the one whom I just called in Russian. I don't know if Maya managed to translate it. The best film producer in the world.
That sounds like you, Teach.
That's
There's a terrible mistake here.
I don't think that's at all funny.
So,
ironic.
go on, tell me, did you, when you were sitting there without any job, you know, did you wish it all was like in a process?
Well, there were no other jobs going in Bromley, so I thought I'd become the only film producer in Bromley. So it's probably safe to say I'm the best film producer in Bromley because I'm the only film producer.
Okay, you want to say anything, Anachka?
Yes, I would like to say, just behind me there is a fireplace, and there is a prescription there which says 1664. So the residents of the house lived in 1664, and in 1665 there was a great plague in London. So during this quarantine, especially in the beginning, I have to say I was quite scared overall, because it wasn't so sort of looking good, especially with shortages of flour in the shops. And I'm a generation of transition in Russia, so I went through some sort of hard times. So it was a sort of kind of a stressful period for me. And this is when I discovered gardening, you know, planting vegetables, thinking of really sort of making food for yourself. And so it wasn't so much time for creativity in the beginning. I was sort of hoarding and getting food and everything. But then I sort of realized it's not so bad. So I actually discovered that I can stay with my husband in the house for quite a long time, being productive, creative. There was still some casting going through. I started to write. I have a new hobby of metal detecting. So I found some really not very valuable treasures, like some sort of horseshoe or some other kind of uninteresting objects, but it's very exciting. So it was a difficult time, challenging, but at the same time there was some special, I don't know, flavor or joy about this quarantine. And I think I should make a new inscription on this fireplace which will say COVID 2020 because I earned it, because we survived it, because we earned it. So we actually can say we went through these epidemics, which is remarkable. And yeah, it's very unique times.
Well, I saw you being very active on Facebook.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I did some survival lessons. I taught some survival lessons from my sort of post-Soviet experience.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Thank you.
People who saw the film say it is a great story. That's what I heard. I'm talking mostly about Russian and British viewers. It's a very British story, a very British comedy. But when I ask what is British comedy, they all say different things. I thought your film was a dramedy, not just a comedy. Drama, a very British comedy. And by the way, how would you describe a British comedy? Anyone can start.
I think that what we love in Britain is we love somebody with aspirations above their talent level. So we love people who are at the bottom, who desperately want to be at the top but can't get there because they haven't got the talent. All our favourite sitcom characters and comedy characters all have that in common, that they are desperately trying to better themselves. So I think the Bromley Boys is that. I think you know, Dave as the lead character wants to better himself, and he's in a rich tradition of British comedy characters, I think.
Okay, that's lovely. TJ, anything you want to say? You're trying to make a comedy. What was in your head?
I've just noticed we've got someone else joining us. Is it Kirill?
Yes, that is Kirill.
Okay.
Kirill Emilievich, welcome. Welcome.
Look, I think what we set out to do was to create a distinctly British comedy. There are elements of drama in it, but it has a very human story. It is one of the, I suppose, it's a typical British story in that it embraces the underdog. And as Warren has alluded to, us Brits love stories about underdogs because we just tend to fall in love with them and we want to see them better themselves. And half the time they don't actually, and that's what happens certainly in sitcoms. But, you know, with a feature film, you see where Dave starts on his journey, his rites of passage story, and you see where he ends up. You know, and I think for that reason, it's a bit more than a comedy, because I'd like to think it's also very heartwarming. That's my wife behind me. Yeah, so I wouldn't say it's an out-and-out slapstick comedy, because it has the human elements to it that, you know, make you feel good, but also, yeah, just give you that sort of warm, fuzzy feeling. I think Steve would probably be able to explain it better than I.
I doubt it, but yeah, you know, when I read the script, you know, anyone that, whether you're an actor or any part of the process, at some stage you get a script, and it's almost your destiny, this thing. So I open it, and the first thing I usually see is I see who wrote it. And that gives you a bit of a clue as to what you're going to be getting. But obviously, with Warren, I didn't know much about Warren at the time, and I just read the script, and I just found myself smiling, and then every now and then in hysterical laughter. And I think everything they said about I think there are so many different types of British comedies that it's really hard to say what type. But we were trying to make something that would have fitted in the 1970s. So it was a 1970s British comedy, kind of with the characters we had in the 70s. Not sitcom, because you believe all the characters. They kind of feel as they're real. They're certainly characterful. And it's kind of deliberately written to be funny, but it also feels sometimes accidentally warm-hearted. So even when we had early viewings and screenings with some pretty sort of big distributors, I would spend all my time looking at them, and they were all smiling, and they hit the laughs when the laughs happened to be there, but they also just smiled, and you could see at the end of it, they were just happy. And that was kind of the feeling that the 70s gives the nostalgic people of our vintage, is that it was warm and fuzzy, and things were better. They were less complicated. And just, you got this one young kid who basically is a total loser, but actually his heart's in the right place, and he does come through in the end. So it is a classic tale, and one that from the moment I read the script, I was smiling. And that is something that, when the world's a strange place, it's almost, to have laughter and smiles is actually incredibly rare. I've only ever worked on one sitcom where people never laughed, so I always assumed you shouldn't call it a situation comedy. But we all smiled, and it was a huge success.
I would like to add from the Russian perspective on the British comedy, if I may. I think British comedy and British sense of humor overall, it's kind of one of my favorite in Britain. And I think the country should be really proud of British comedies, including sitcoms and feature films. It's very interesting, because everywhere in the world, people love British comedies. And even though the humor may be really specific to England, it's still appreciated everywhere else, because it's not my first British comedy film. Love Possibly was also a British comedy, and I really enjoyed how people in other countries really love British comedy, even though it's very it tells the story about the country as well. But overall British sense of humor, it's kind of sarcastic. You know, it can be soft, but it can be very hard. I think in Bromley Boys, it's probably on the softer side, because it's really like warm-hearted, but still there was some really sort of moments of a sarcastic British humor. But I really overall enjoy British comedies, and I think the Russian audience and the audience abroad enjoy the Bromley Boys as a wonderful example of the British comedy.
There is, sorry, if there's just one thing I also wanted to add, it's also a bit of a love story. You know, it's a story about a boy falling in love with a football team for the first time, and that sense of belonging that goes with that, but also falling in love with a girl for the first time, and all of the beautiful awkwardness that goes with that. And I think we can probably all relate, well, I certainly can relate to that. You know, I think we can also probably see a little bit of ourselves in that, in the way Dave sort of acts around this girl, and you know, is very nervous and does things completely wrong. And I think Steve did a really remarkable job with both the Brennock and with Savannah in you know, getting that chemistry on screen between the two of them and making it believable. Yeah, we'll go back on mute.
We have a very weak internet on this side, but hopefully you guys are okay. We didn't miss anything. At least everything is being recorded. My son is trying to help me to make it more stable, but we're going to continue this. And I have to confess, I fell in love with the Bromley Boys. Really, what a wonderful human story it is. I found it a touching and universal story. By getting investors for any film is difficult, TJ. In particular, perhaps for a local story about a minor team. So, TJ, this question I should be asking you, what is the story behind this wonderful film? Why you were so tempted to find money? How did it go? How did you find the money?
With great difficulty. I mean, when I started out, I had a full head of hair. That's all gone. So anyway, there is some pain that goes with it. But, look, so I got the rights to the book back in 2011. I'll try and make this very succinct. I engaged Warren, who we'd worked on a previous, we worked on a pilot together, which funnily enough was about a non-league football team. It was a very funny pilot. Sadly, it didn't get commissioned, but Warren had an awful lot of material there and I loved his writing. So after I got the rights to the book, I went and met Warren in a pub in Brighton and said, look, how do you fancy developing this screenplay? And that's how we sort of embarked on the journey. I think we got the first draft done reasonably quickly. And then it was about sort of going out and sort of sounding out the market, while also trying to engage a director. And thankfully for us, Steve bought into it. I think I won't answer on behalf of Steve. I think he's already answered it actually, but you know, it certainly ticks some boxes for him. I think he can relate to it. But the most challenging thing about any independent film is getting the money. It's that simple, but it's actually very difficult. And because we had such a small film, and when I say a small film, I don't mean the production value, I mean the story. On paper, it's about a non-league football team that aren't very good, and the title is The Bromley Boys. So unless you're a Bromley fan or you live in Bromley, are you really going to want to go and see this film? And I suppose that's where I hit a number of hurdles, because investors were just saying to me, I can't see this traveling. I can't see it getting out of a Bromley cinema. You know, it's about a football team that aren't very good. That's the bottom line. And so what happens, and I must have seen somewhere in the region of 500 investors, and what tends to happen is you get to read the signals, and you then know how to field those questions better, and you get better and you get better and you get better, until eventually we started getting some traction. And as you will understand, the hardest bit is getting that first money over the line, because no one wants to be first in. But once you've got that first bit of money in the pot, your life, I wouldn't say easy, but the sale becomes a little bit easier because you've got some traction. You've got some proof that people do believe in what you're trying to make. Now, that's not to say we went into production with probably only about 75% of the money. But, you know, and this, I'm sort of fast tracking now to 2000, when did we shoot it? Was it 2016? Yeah. I think 2016, wasn't it? Sorry, my hat's just falling off. So, yeah, we went in 2018. Yeah, it came out in 2018. I think we spent the best part of a year in post-production because of all the special effects, the painting out satellite dishes and whatnot. But just to go back, yeah, so we went into production knowing we still needed some money. And that was pretty hair-raising. It was, for, excuse the pun, because we knew we had to get to the end of the film, but we didn't have enough money to do it. So we're on set and we're trying to raise the money. And I did have a sort of an out-of-body experience at one point, and it was quite early on in the shoot, because you know, you front load the film, you put all your big production value stuff up front, and we must have had, I don't know, 200 cast and crew on set, running around doing their various things, and I kind of stood back out of myself and thought, oh geez, I hope we get to the end of this. I really do. Look at all these people that are working so hard. And I think, if anything, that drives you on. That was a massive drive for us. And I think as we started getting the rushes through and we put together a teaser, or Steve put together a 5-minute teaser of the stuff that we'd shot, and that managed to get us the balance, it was 500,000 that we needed to get the film in the can. We managed to do that. We've actually raised another $500,000 to sort of do the marketing and you know, deliver it to various territories. But the one last thing I would say, just going back to the investors, and this is where I do have a smile on my face, because those investors that said, look, it's a tiny little film, it's not going to travel. Well, I can say to them now that we've sold 15 territories, which equates to over 45 countries around the world. We have an exclusive licensing deal with Sky in the UK. It's now available in over 60 million homes in the United States of America. And I'm not bragging, I'm just saying, you know, on behalf of the whole team, we've actually managed to prove those investors that didn't invest wrong. And I quite like that.
Amazing. And you have an absolutely wonderful cast. You know, so many actors and actresses. It really is a big production. And now this question probably to Steve. How did you manage to, I should say that, that the young boy who played the lead, he was so fit in his role. All compliments I would put right to your feet, Steve. It's an amazing work, amazing job. How did you manage to put together so many different ages, different nationalities? Well, Anna is Russian.
Do you know what? It is one of the great joys to have casting sessions, and where you get to meet real talent, and they bring a script to get to life in a very different way. And that's really interesting. You get really great writing, and then the actors feel that they can do something with it. And, you know, Anna would be one of those where just in every scene she's doing something really lovely. I mean, there was just one, we were shooting one scene. It was overly complicated only because the lead actor, Rennick, was sick. So we were having to shoot a scene with him in the middle, but him not being in the middle or actually within about 50 miles of the set. And Anna just came out with this, do you mind if I kind of just do the bubblegum thing? And it was really great, all these little details that people put in. And it just made me laugh. And just the way Anna got hold of every scene with Jamie, there was always some reason to laugh or smile. There was always some nice thing happening in the scene, which, you know, honestly, you know, somebody else that they wouldn't have added, they wouldn't have given more than was already on the page. And that occurred to every single actor. I think one of the keys to it, you know, which is not something you can necessarily manufacture, was just that we all set about to have a great time. And having someone like Brennick on set, now Brennick at the time would have been 15, I think, could have been 14, 15, and Savannah, who was actually about 3 or 4 years older, and then having a number of other younger people on set. You know, obviously sets can be full of interesting language, and it can be fractious sometimes when you're on a film set. And we just set about from day one, and that was all of us. That was TJ, myself, Dean, just wanting to have a great time and create the environment which would allow people to enjoy coming to set, which would allow, when things went wrong, i.e. Day one, you know, I'd originally said to the first assistant director who schedules this, just going to tell you up front now with about 5 weeks to go, could you make sure that what we schedule for the very first day is a very, very easy day? It needs to be just 1 or 2 actors, some really sweet little things that will just get us all up and running, because independent films, you tend to crash into them rather than, you know, have this extended preparation time. Well, we had very little preparation time. It was go. And we turned up on the set on the first day, and it was great. It was great to meet people, see these wonderful cars. One was worth over £500,000, which is loaned to us. Little did we know it was worth more than the film, and had we known, we'd have never had it on the set. And it was lovely. We were all talking and all the rest of it, and it was very convivial. I kept looking around and going, I know we're missing something. Having her with the first and saying, is everything okay? Yeah, it's all fine, it's all fine, all fine, all fine. After about 2.5 hours, 3 hours, I said, look, okay, so something's wrong. What is it? Tell me. He said, well, actually, Steve, you might want to sit down. I said, forget it. Just tell me what it is. He said, well, the camera van has been impounded by the police. And that's the reason why we can't shoot anything, despite the fact that he'd scheduled a massive first day. And as we'd found, somebody made this brilliant decision to put all our equipment into one single van. The single van was so laid down that the wheels and the whole van were almost touching the road. And the police impounded it. So we actually had no camera. And we shot, I think in the end, we shot 2 mini scenes on your first day. So that was the potential for it to all go horribly wrong, because everyone sees that debacle and they just think it's going to be terrible. But there was a great atmosphere from everybody. And that meant it was great fun, and it allowed people to make mistakes. It allowed people to try things, and it just bonded us very, very quickly. And I think Brennick is quite a star. You know, it's not as if I had to drag out of him that performance. I always wanted him to play himself, which, you know, is a very natural thing to do. And he did it so brilliantly that I was watching certain scenes and just going, this could be a new Tom Hanks. There's a certain scene where he's sitting around the swimming pool and he's telling Charlie that he's done everything wrong and he's lied and made it all up. And he's dressed magnificently in this incredible 70s, 60s suit with glasses. And he just looks like Tom Hanks. He is a quality actor, and we were so lucky to have him. And he was great on set as well, laughed and joked with everybody. So we actually had a really fun time making the movie, and worked with a lot of really, really cool people, big cast, but they all came on feeling the vibe on the set, and they all left saying, we've had a great day, thank you.
Oh, that's so amazing. I have a tricky question here. It always a competition between the writer and the film director. Now, was Warren interfering,
yes,
or he was happy?
He was terrible the whole way through. He was awful. It was actually really interesting because, you know, a writer's got a certain vision in their head, and everything works. The intonation of every performance, the way it's set, it's been pre-visualized. And then you get some monkey like myself coming over it and possibly trampling all over all the good stuff. But what we found is that we worked together very well on the script, and we batted forward and back a few bits and pieces because the script was in good shape, and we worked on it. And I think we kind of got a good understanding pretty early on that it wasn't. He couldn't get his way because he was a writer, and I can't get my way because I'm the director. It was, we always tried to find what was the best way. And that worked really well. And I know some directors don't like writers being on set. And I just said, look, come to set every day, because I'm not saying we felt as if we got a finished script when we started shooting it. So what was happening is that Warren was able to see things and go, yeah, I really like that. And that informs some of the additional bits of writing. But also, he would kind of go, do you know what? We've made a mistake here. Something's not working. We've got the colour of the scarf wrong, which is an absolute disaster. But then he would write another gag to make it funny. So actually, he was continuing to write and add things. And because he was slightly at a distance, he was able to catch things that weren't quite working. And it wasn't to do with the actors or anything like that. It was simply to do that, as with all these things, when you get to shoot them, things do change a little bit. And sometimes every one of us wasn't always on the same hymn sheet, whether it was a design had got a miscommunication, therefore they got the wrong color, or they researched something and it was wrong because it was happening so fast. So from my point of view, it was great fun to have like another, we're all storytellers, whether I take the title of director and he writer, we're storytellers, the actors, producers. And so we made sure every part of it was highly collaborative. At least that's what I think. He might think the whole thing was a mess.
I disagree. I disagree. That's fine. That's all completely correct. From the writing point of view, the hardest thing is when you write scenes that you think are very funny and you're convinced and are very funny, and we both like them, but they just don't move the story on. So that was always my thing with Steve. Steve is wanting to move the story on because he's got to direct this movie, and I am desperate to keep my silly jokes in that would take a 2 or 3 minute scene to tell a silly joke but not get the story moved on. And so I would suggest that Steve was right on almost every occasion. You know, I did argue a few times, I think, about bits, but not really. I think we worked really well together. And I remember one morning, it was a scene with Anna and Jamie, and I had to write that on the Saturday morning, and you were shooting it at Saturday lunchtime. So that was a quite an experience.
But from that comes my favourite line in the movie, and it's so abstract that Charlie says when she's about to leave him, he says, "You're going back to Moscow." Oh. And Anna says, "No, Cheesy." And I don't know why, but it's my favourite line. There's something so great about it. But this was happening. He was rewriting things
on the day,
and I was still laughing. I was reading them, and I could just laugh because it was more funny stuff coming all the time. We didn't stop because we had pieces of paper in front of us. When there was a great idea, it was like, no, let's get it in. And let's not lose any gags. Let's just put them somewhere else. So Warren would just find another scene that we hadn't shot, and he could crowbar another gag in there. So we just got, it just kept evolving, which is great to do. It really is.
You know what, when I see a great movie, I'm always worried to read the novel, if it is based on a novel, but now I'm convinced I'm going to read your novel. Anyway, before giving some space to our VIP guests, we have some great people joining us today. I want to ask what sort of experience was Janechka? How did you meet these guys? Who invited you?
I lost a bit of a question, but I think I understood it. Well, I have to say, first of all, I really enjoyed working on the film, and Steve and TJ and the team, they created, as Steve said, this wonderful atmosphere on set, and it was truly welcoming, friendly, and that is why, as an actor, you become more creative. You become when you're relaxed and you don't feel this stress and pressure, you really start to open up and you really feel confident in your character, and you then truly live your character rather than act it. And I remember every day on set of Bromley Boys, to be honest, and on the last day it was really tragic to go, and I was just really sad that it's all over for me. And I remember this, it was just every day like a great party, even though it was a hard work, even though we had some time to wait, but we occupied ourselves with the wonderful conversations, and the weather was terrible. I think it was the chilliest November I experienced in the UK, and we had lots of outdoor scenes, but nevertheless, it was always funny and warm. And it was really a remarkable experience for me to be part of the shooting process. I really loved watching the film, but I really equally loved being part of the shooting process. And playing Anyushka for me, I have to say, I kind of can say it was easy, because I really visualized this character, because it was such a nice, great character. So it's kind of almost emerged in my head, and then I didn't have to do much to sort of express its life on set. So it's sort of this materialistic princess, a bit beachy, but not so bad, and sort of a bit glamorous. I think my character added a bit of a glamour, at least tried to add a bit of a glamour to this sort of Bromley set. But it was kind of this hilarious contrast of this sort of glamorous person in this shabby stadium. And I really sort of enjoyed the story of my character, and that's why I really loved playing it. And I loved being part of the team and work with other members of the cast. I didn't play, unfortunately, any scene with Martin Makuchin, but I saw her on set and at the table reading, and she's very remarkable. She's very sort of, she has this amazing charisma and a really striking voice, and she's very attractive as well. And we know her from previous films, so it was really interesting to see her. And Jamie Foreman is absolutely amazing. I sort of almost fell in love with his charisma. He told me so many stories about his life. And it was really wonderful to be with him on set, and also in a waiting area, to kind of become almost like friends. So I really enjoyed it, and thank you very much, Steve and TJ, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to be with you.
Well, Anachka, what I can say, you were very different in this film, which says a lot about you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And also about the director.
Yeah, absolutely. This collaborative work and this vision, it was really easy to play Anyushka, because she's so striking. So you really see how she kind of is, and that's why you sort of embody her very easily and then develop her life. But thank you so much. Thank you.
Amazing. Now, as I said, I have some VIP guests. All my guests are great and interesting people. But I wanted first to make Kirill Razlogov or Mohy Quandour. Kirill Razlogov is a well-known film critic in Russia and beyond. He is a program director for Moscow International Film Festival, and we're very privileged that Kirill is our artistic director. And Mohy Quandour is a Hollywood veteran director. He is a composer, a best-selling author, and he is also one of the main guys who makes our festival happen. So guys, you choose who is going to go first.
Kirill is going first.
Okay. I'm sorry about the bad internet connection, but I hope it will work. I liked the film very much, but my great fear was that it was too British to have a universal appeal. So the question I wanted to ask was already asked and answered by the producer and the director. The film worked well and people understood it. And in Russia, it's perhaps more easy because we have the wonderful Russian actors in a wonderful Russian character. And we are also football fans. There was not much said about football, perhaps in the beginning that I missed, but it's kind of a British and Russian religion, and this religious feeling is very well shown in the film. And another question I wanted to ask, but that was already answered. I had the feeling that all the people in the film had a very good time doing it, independently of the result. And when people are having a good time, the result is usually good because the feeling is there. So that were my main considerations after I saw the film. And I think that it deserves the love of the people, the many spectators that have seen it, but also the consideration of the film critics, who are usually difficult with this kind of films. Comedies don't travel well, and comedies are liked but not appreciated by the critics community. So I'm one of the persons who wrote an article in '84, which was almost impossible to do in Soviet Russia, defending entertainment in cinema. And the article made me famous in several socialist countries because nobody dared say it. Now I won't say it because everybody says it. But this film, this film combines the two, the artistic quality, the pleasure of doing it and seeing it, and also the feeling that there's cinema outside of the big productions which are becoming duller and duller. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kirill. Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, so is there a big difference between Russian type of comedies or British? Do you think it exists actually? Does comedy has nationality, identity, national identity?
Every comedy has a national identity. That's the most difficult part of it, because there are wonderful comedies, German comedies that have a tremendous success in Germany and don't travel anywhere. There are wonderful comedies that are done in France that French people like, but nobody else understands what it's about because they're speaking a different kind of language and their accent doesn't pass around. Of course, for British comedies, it works also because there are several British languages. There are British American, British, American English, British English, Cockney, and also the international English that we are trying to speak, which is entirely different from the two of them, the British and the American one. So when we see a British comedy, we wonder, would people understand the jokes? Would people understand the differences in pronunciations? Would people feel that Bromley is different from Kensington and people who are living there are speaking differently and feeling differently? And this feeling comes out of the film. You understand it by the comportments, the actors doing it. So that's also a quality, but not every comedy has this quality. And I know wonderful Russian comedies that don't travel around and wonderful, I don't know, Latin American comedies that I like very much because I speak a little bit of Spanish, but nobody understands the differences between the Spanish spoken in Argentina and the Spanish spoken in Spain and the non-Spanish that is spoken in Catalonia. So this comedy is a very difficult genre. And if it's an international success, it's a real success. But also there are great, great, great comedies that don't travel well, don't travel outside of Bromley.
Thank you so much. Mohy.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry. I had a bad connection, so I I lost probably a lot of what was said before. I would have probably said almost the same things that Kirill just mentioned. I enjoyed the film thoroughly. I really did. At first, I thought, I mean, as it started, I thought it was going to be a documentary because there was this guy narrating a story, and then suddenly you get into the characters, and the story becomes a story of hope, perseverance, doggedness almost, against all odds. I mean, the Bromley team is a disaster. And this guy plans to reverse the situation, make it famous. But he doesn't do it with plotting, planning, figuring out different way of playing, different game structures and so on. He does it with a very simple emotional thing called motivation. And it works magically. I mean, in the end, of course, it's a great triumph. I think that makes the film different and enjoyable in a way. It's the idea that if you believe in something and believe in it strongly, you can achieve it. That's it. I mean, if you keep trying, you can get there. It's uplifting. I mean, this is lovely. It's uplifting narrative. There are, I saw, of course, I saw a lot of improvisations, and I'm sure it's been talking. I'm sure Steve has talked about it. It's lovely for a director to give freedom to actors to do things in their own way, not to follow the script 100%, to improvise when they feel like it. And this is lovely. For me, it's very obvious in this film. And I think that's what also makes it an interesting film. I don't know. I could go on talking too long, but I want to give other people a chance to say something. I just want to say that I thoroughly enjoyed it. I agree with Kirill. It is totally typically British film, and many other cultures probably would not understand the humor, the very special, typical British humor. Only people who live in Britain or who know British humor can appreciate it. So regardless whether the film gets big international distribution or not, I think it was a successful film, and I congratulate the whole team who made it happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. What's quite interesting with what you said there is that, you know, comedy is such a wide thing, but we noticed when we did take it to international audiences, the things that everybody got was the physical comedy, yes. Something not relying and...
I wanted to say the body language.
Yes, yes.
The body language was obvious and beautiful in the film.
Yeah, that's something that, you know, I know TJ's great at that as well. You know, he had that dual role of playing one of the main characters and also trying to produce at the same time, which on an indie movie is no easy thing. And there were many times when I hadn't seen it the way it was being done. But that's so nice when you watch somebody do something and it just works so well. And also I edited the piece. I've been an editor for donkey's years, for probably about 30 plus years. So I edited it as well. And it was, you know, that means I go through every single frame that was shot. I've got an encyclopedic memory. I know what's there, but I went through every single, and I could just see more nuances than even I'd spotted on the set. And TJ was one of those especially, is that so much of what he did really had resonance, and the smallest details really punched through. And it's very smart. I mean, I'd say it's smart by a lot of people. We took the movie to Dinard, which they have the English Film Festival over in Dinard in France, which is rather lovely. And at 10 o'clock in the morning, there was a screening, and was it 400? Was it 250, 400 people turned up 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning?
Amazing.
And they laughed like hyenas. It was quite amazing. And it was a great one for us because we didn't subtitle it. And I know internationally everyone knows English and we're not very good at other languages. But they got it. And also hearing them laugh at other things that English audiences hadn't laughed at. And certainly it's a great note to brain that, you know, if you want to do something that's international, just more slapstick. And when you've got people laughing, keep them laughing. Which is a really interesting thing. You know, if you get someone to laugh once, actually it doesn't take too much more to get them to laugh the second time. And if they're laughing twice, you can get them to laugh a third and a fourth. And they were all little things kind of I picked up too, you know, taking it around and seeing how people responded. But we certainly, wherever we've taken it internationally, it seems to have, and I love these little indie films, either from Italy or from France, wherever they are, when they've got a heart to them. You know, you don't understand everything, but there's something about it that does travel. So I really appreciate what you said, you know, really insightful, and thank you. Thank you from all of us.
Steve, what I loved about the film is that it was not slapstick comedy. It was natural comedy. And I know from my experience, comedy is the most difficult kind of film to make. Absolutely. No question about it. It's very difficult. And I loved the freedom you gave the actors, all of them, to express themselves in ways that they felt it was natural, it was coming from them, not scripted. Maybe it was scripted, I don't know.
I am going to tell you, I'm going to tell you something here. It was nearly always scripted.
It was scripted.
Which kind of does throw back, it was a good script. And a good script means actors feel that they can add to it as well. And when they add, it doesn't take away, it just adds.
Yes.
So I think...
Well, I think they did it so naturally.
Yeah.
It was, you could, I mean, there's a lot of things, people look at films in different eyes. We do also differently. And you can see natural acting as to sort of imposed acting, you know, where you have to wear this jacket, become this character, and say the dialogue, what's scripted. Maybe these people followed the script 100%, but their body language, their reactions, their cutaways, it all added up to making it look so natural that they were not even acting. They were being themselves. And that I loved. That I really loved.
I'm going to again blow the trumpet of Warren, because what we did is that at castings, Warren would be there as much as possible for different castings and things. And so he took the process of this script's not finished, in a sense. Look at Anna, look what she's doing. Look, I've got a great gag now for Anna. And oh, Steve, look, what if we just add this? Wouldn't this be great? So actually, he kept evolving it, seeing how the character, and because after the first few days, he stopped coming to set. He said he'd got a bit bored, not much to do. What he did do, though, was he watched every frame of the rushes. And it meant that he could go, oh, look, I've got something great for this. Oh, that's not working. And we improvised some stuff, but honestly, we really kept to the script. We had one piece of improvisation, which I think Warren got Warren said it's the funniest moment in the movie. It is not by any means, but it's a nice moment in the movie, which was we had a real problem with our designer. In so much as, like everything's last minute. Everything, you're having to do far too much with far too little resources. And we got to the point where I think she felt that had passed some 2-3 weeks ago. And so we turned up to have this really intense one day of filming in a studio with a studio build of Dave's bedroom. We turned up and almost nothing was constructed. And so basically we all join in, start painting walls, and we're way behind our filming schedule, forget all that. And they had a problem, which is that the carpet they put in and the door that they'd fixed, it wouldn't move. And so there's this scene where the mum puts in a little note, and this is for you, it's a present, and then feeds through the parcel. Now, originally that was packed up, so it was about this high, but we couldn't get it under the door. And they wouldn't rehang it, they wouldn't do anything. So I finally got them to push it up a little bit. So we had this much. So I said, in that case, I want you to make a long scarf, like the full length of a scarf. And so there were little bits of improvisation we could do. So in the end, when he starts pulling forward the parcel given by his mum, he pulls it. But those things came up, but mostly it was because Warren never thought that when we started, the script should ever stop being evolved. And he kept rewriting great gags. And if we had to lose a scene, he would try to put that gag somewhere else to make it work. So yeah, that's why it was so collaborative. We all kept doing it together.
I think it was, every film is teamwork and continuous cooperation between everybody else. Sometimes even gaffers get involved.
Yeah.
You could feel in this film a lot of joy of the people who did it. I mean, it was, you could sense that there's a lot of fun making this film. And it comes across the screen. I mean, it comes to the audience. You feel it. I felt it. I really felt it, that the people on the silver screen were enjoying themselves, not just working.
Well, I must add something here. One of my colleagues and my friend from Moscow, Olga Koroleva, she's here in our discussions, Hayden. She said, can you believe I fell in love with football after this film?
Oh, God.
Oh my God, I hated football. and now I'm also in love with this. It kept me tensed. And when they made the last goal, I was relieved. I was so happy. Martin Kimber from Twin Association, Cheltenham in Sochi. He has something to say here.
Yeah, hi. As most people know, I'm not involved in the movie business at all. Never have been, never will be. But I am active in football.
Hey.
And I was active in South London in the 1960s and early 1970s. So my comments really are about the authenticity that you created in this very enjoyable movie. And I just add one other point, because the first time I went to Russia was in 1965, and I was 16. It was a school trip, very unusual for anybody in England to go to Russia in 1965. But my school, a very ordinary South London comprehensive, Stockwell Manor, we linked up with a suburb of Moscow and we went to Russia. Remarkable. Even more remarkable is that one of the teachers who came with us, a maths teacher, his name was Colin England, at that time in 1965 was a footballer. And guess which team he played for?
No,
Bromley.
Did he really?
He played for Bromley. And so yesterday, after I saw the film on YouTube, I quickly sent a message on the ex-pupils Facebook page of Stockwell Manor saying, does anybody remember Colin England? And I got a few messages back. And so I said, well, actually, I've just seen a film about Bromley. And one of the guys said, well, I know Dave Roberts. I know Colin is in France, and I know he gets mentioned 2 or 3 times in the book on which Warren's script is based.
Wow.
So I mean that is just an incredible coincidence. So anyway, to get back to the authenticity, I got 2 questions really. What football grounds did you use as a replacement for Bromley? Because it clearly wasn't Bromley. Bromley's ground is much posher now, I think. And also, how much of the filming that you made were you not able to use? Because you know it's a very expansive film. There's a lot of outdoor shots. You know, you've got lots of people doing different things and creating the atmosphere to give it that authenticity. But how much did you have to, as it were, leave on the cutting floor?
Actually, not too much. There weren't too many scenes that didn't make it in one shape or the other. You know, again, sheer economy is that you haven't got a schedule to end up with, you know, extra scenes that you really don't need. And we kind of wheedled out any scenes that we thought, okay, they're really nice to have, but they're not essential. And the process of shooting does that quite brutally. You're just, you know, you have to lose a scene or 2 in a shooting day. And we had sickness with Brennick. He was ill for about 3 days, which meant that there's quite a few things we couldn't shoot. And when we kind of did the edit, we kind of didn't need to reshoot all the things we were going to. It worked without them. You know, that was quite handy. So whereas we really had 3 days of filming, we just had 1 long day of pickup. And that's the reason it spanned 2016, 2017. We didn't finish filming until 2017. So yeah, there's not much that didn't really kind of make it. You can't afford that. Yeah.
Okay. And the other thing I enjoyed as well was the final scenes of Great Victory, was because I'm still a football referee. Even in my 70s, I referee local football. I used to referee in the Invicta League in South London back in the 1960s. Because I qualified the same year I went to Russia. But I was so pleased to see the pivotal role the referee had in making the final goal happen so that Bromley could survive. I know maybe it should have been a penalty, but he would have missed the penalty. The free kick gave him the chance.
The guy who played the referee in the final, I believe, TJ, was Derek Dobson.
Derek Thompson.
Yeah, who played the referee. And Derek Dobson was the character in the film that you
really
played. Yeah.
Yeah. If you look back at the slides, you'll see a picture of you know the person that played him, and actually him. There he is, and he was our ref throughout.
Yeah.
And of course, it was only 20 years before that Bromley won the FA Amateur Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first time it was ever played at Wembley.
Yes.
The Amateur Cup. Yeah.
Martin, just to answer your other question about the grounds that we
Sure.
used.
Oh yes. Yeah.
So we did search the length and breadth of the country because, you know, back in those days there wasn't really too much.
They were so shabby. Yeah.
But obviously grounds now have all had to succumb to health and safety.
Yeah.
We ended up finding a ground, would you believe, no more than 3 miles away from Bromley.
Crikey.
The football club was called Crocken Hill FC in Swanley. And would you believe it, their ground and their grandstand was so ramshackle, so down, well, we actually had to do it up to make it fit for birthday.
It's like some of the grounds in the Cotswolds still are.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah.
I mean,
sorry, we did 2 weeks of filming there, and it was interesting because it was at the top of the hill. It had its own little microclimate, which added an extra level of challenge, shall we say?
Yeah, amazing. Because I always thought Swanley was such a posh place, and have a ground like that was amazing.
Oh, it's a joy. If you're ever in the neighbourhood, you must go visit.
I will.
Oh,
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Really enjoyed the movie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Martin.
As I said before, we're joined by a magnificent Russian actress, Maria Dobrezhinskaya. I would like to introduce once more her. She was walking around. I understood that she is not in Moscow at the moment. Машенька, можно говорить по-русски? У нас есть переводчики. She played in more than 100 movies in Russia.
Oh.
And
And she played in one of my movies.
yes, and we planned another big project with her. Hopefully it will come through. Yes, she wanted to ask, she has her question. Можно по-русски, Мария, спросить? У нас есть переводчица. Не слышно. Сейчас.
Russia.
Окей, now.
Да, я хочу задать вопрос, но я сначала хочу сказать, Любушка, спасибо тебе большое, что ты позвала меня, потому что очень интересная беседа. И, честно говоря, меня не слышно, да?
Слышно.
Я, к сожалению, фильм не видела, потому что меня только сегодня утром Люба позвала. Но я знаю, как я проведу сегодняшнюю ночь. Слышно, да? Можно, да?
Можно.
Давай, Маша.
Да, но, знаете, я уже уверена, что это замечательный фильм, потому что мне так приятно слышать столько любви между режиссером, актрисой, актрисой. Вообще, я прям сразу вспомнила, как мы снимали Мохи, Люба. Мне кажется, вот только в такой атмосфере вообще возможно создать что-то хорошее. И вот у меня вопрос. Я думаю, что мой вопрос, он от всех русских актеров. Скажите, пожалуйста, я сейчас уберу просто, как возможно, и возможно ли вообще русскому артисту попасть в британское кино, и если, который живет в Москве, допустим, и если это возможно, то что нужно для этого сделать?
Вопрос на засыпку.
Ну да.
Yes. As I understood, the question is, how can a Russian actor or actress get involved in British films?
You're making a good interpreter, Mohy.
Yeah, well,
Mohy, ну да.
And I think that Russian actors have as much opportunity in British films as do British actors in Russian films. And I don't want to go back so far to Vera Grigorieva's film with
Ralph Fiennes.
Ralph Fiennes, which was an amazing film called Two Women. That was an amazing cooperation. I think the possibility exists today to do this, despite the politics. I mean, culture, film must transcend politics. It has nothing to do with politics. And I think the opportunities should be made available to have exchanges, to use in a story that involves Russian actors. They're using British actors, using some Russian words and so on, which doesn't really come across as real. They should use Russian actors, import Russian actors. The same thing in Moscow and Russia. They use Russian actors to speak English with a dialect, which is not believable. I mean, it cannot be real. So this is something we must overcome as filmmakers. We must do this. And I'd love to have. We have a project which would be a Russian-British co-production with Luba leading the team actually. I'm only going to be the producer, but Luba the director. You understand, Masha?
I know. What I want to say is that our film festival is trying to introduce actors to, mix British, Russian actors, producers, and so you have another beautiful actress on your list.
Luba, надо говорить по-русски.
Да, я знаю.
Yes, I was just talking to the producer of the Bromley Boys. Я говорю, Машенька, о том, что мы стараемся представить друг другу русских и британских актеров, продюсеров. I'm trying to do it online when the festival is not on.
Понятно. Надежда есть.
Надежда всегда есть. There is always hope. Yes.
Yes.
Спасибо.
Hope is one thing, Luba, but we must actively write stories, develop scripts that get people involved. Russian actors in British films, British actors in Russian films. This is
a great idea.
Good politics.
We're going to promote that, definitely. We're going to promote that, definitely.
Yes.
So I'm going to, if I didn't leave anyone behind, if anyone wants to say anything, we have a wonderful Russian poet, Margarita Markova here, and our Vice President Charles Stewart. So guys, if you like to say anything, you're very welcome. Anachka.
I just wanted to say, I really wanted to just say a few words about coming back to the Bromley Boys. I just wanted to say that we also had a wonderful costume designer and makeup designer who made our wonderful characters. And when I think about this film and when I was watching it, I was actually fascinated how they created all our looks and created this wonderful flavor of the time, because we should not forget it's not about modern times. It was in the end of 60s, beginning of 70s, so create this atmosphere and make it real was really challenging. But I think I don't know, Steve, what do you think? I think they did a really great job, because it's really striking, the costumes and the makeup they created for the characters. I just wanted to say a few words about them.
And of course the music. The music is very important.
And the music, yeah.
The Beatles should have come in a little more.
Possibly, but they had disbanded by 1970.
Yeah, just about.
Also, guys, if you want to exchange your emails or telephone, we have a chat here. You can send to each other your details, or I will always help to connect. So if we're coming to the end, I hope this is not the end. We hope to bring again the same movie, the same film to Sochi this year, The Bromley Boy, because it was chosen for an award, SIFFA 2020, and we're going to award this film this year. We were discussing this with Mohy, with Kirill, Charles, Fifi, a member of our team here as well, and program director. We had big discussions, and we really would like to award this again, and also to offer without competition to screen it for Sochians, for those who didn't see this film in November this year. So congratulations with that. And also, thank you so very much for giving us such pleasure talking with you, sharing with you our feelings. Thank you for all the details you told us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luba.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
Real
very
pleasure.
much.
Thank you so much, everybody.
And thank you, Luba.
Nice meeting you all.
It was very nice to see everyone.
Yeah, it's
Feels
been a
like
while.
family. So thank you, everyone.
Hope to see you soon, everyone, again.
Thank you.
Спасибо.
Thanks again. Great to meet you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Спасибо.
На здоровье.
Пожалуйста.